Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session with Emily. It's about the topic leading in Web3. And I think this is a brand new topic for all of us, or let's say at least for the majority of us. And I'm really welcoming Emily Rose Dallara, and she's an award-winning leadership coach with extensive experience working with businesses, groups, and individuals. She originally comes from the marketing side. She has lived all over the world. She lived 8 years in Vietnam. She's originally from the UK. Today she lives in Lyon, in France. And she is one of the leaders in Web3 and crypto for more than 7 years. And she focuses on individuals. And she's going to host this wonderful webinar today or masterclass. And I would say, Emily, the floor is yours. We are not hearing you.
Would help if I turn the microphone
it's
on.
Good. It's working.
Perfect. Brilliant. Thank you so much for the introduction. And I am going to just share my screen and present. Here we go. So, oh, wait, let's make sure you can all see that. Fabulous. I'm just going to move this little out of the way. Perfect. So I just want to do a quick introduction, but you already did a really great introduction. But firstly, for those of you who don't know me, I hope that you can hear me okay. I've just set up the mic. It might not be close enough, but I think it is. Brilliant.
It's all good. Thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know me, maybe you don't follow me on LinkedIn or Instagram yet, I am Emily Rose Dallara. I am a AC accredited leadership coach, mindset coach, and I work with organizations and businesses to help them improve their organizational structure, help them to understand who to hire, how to manage their team, how to do conflict resolution, how to pivot, all these kind of things. I also work one-on-one with people. Majority of my time is one-on-one and with groups. I work one-on-one with people in emerging tech and Web3, and I have my own group coaching program, Thrive Circle, which is one-on-one, mostly women. It's a lovely group of people. Prior to this, I was a CMO marketing leader for 13 years, and 7 of those years were in Web3, which was crypto back then. I started out in the financial side. I was with Bitcoin.com, OKX, AAX, different exchanges and funds. And then I realized that actually, instead of helping people with marketing, I wanted to help the people deal with the crazy turbulent tides of Web3 and emerging tech. So the constant pivots, the constant decision changes, the strange behaviors. I wanted them to be able to feel supported and that they had the resources to deal with whatever came to them. And so that's when I opened up my business, reaccredited and qualified, and launched my coaching. I also have a podcast, Web3 and Thrive, where I speak about, speak to the majority of people working in Web3. It's not just for leaders, but help them to understand how to thrive in this space. I have a leadership initiative, which is set up with different founders in the industry. And I also have another business, which is very techie Web 2.5 escrow solution. So that's enough about me, but all follow me on LinkedIn, Emily Rose Dallara. Now, when I was working in Web3, I realized that there was something going on. There was something not quite right. I'd worked in many different industries, primarily in tech, and I'd realized that Web3 doesn't quite work the way that we want it to. It doesn't really support us. It's a space that is erratic, and there's just something that I couldn't, when I was working in this space, I was like, what is it that is not working here? And for me personally, my experience was that there was no structure to the companies. There was a lot of flat companies. There wasn't very many, there wasn't a huge understanding of why someone was working in a company or what their role was. There was no goals, there was no visions, there was no HR a lot of the time. And so we dug into this, and I actually, with the leadership initiative, ran a report last year. And the report was focused on answering the question, like, what is the problem with leadership? What is the problem with these companies? Like, what what kind of data can we bring to the service to start taking action about? And so there's a few things that came up. There's a huge lack of integrity and transparency. There are no real clear directions or visions. This is a generalization and from the data we collected, by the way. It's not just an opinion. There's lots of companies, especially the larger scale ones, who have decided to decentralize, but this is creating silos instead of creating empowerment in their teams. Leaders and teams are not really sure who to trust, or they're not even sure how to get trust. Like, how do we build trust in these teams? And the hugest problem was that everybody was working 24/7 and they felt like they had to. It wasn't like a choice. They felt like if they didn't, then they would never keep up with the industry or the developments. And there's just lots and lots of, I wouldn't say negative issues, but there's lots of issues that came up. And these were what we decided to focus on. And so that's what I'll talk to you about today. And so in my experience, I kept seeing really great leaders coming in, and we used to hire in the exchanges what we called like AAA leaders. So the Googles, the Amazons, all that kind of stuff. We used to bring them in because of their track record and how good they were and their experience. But they used to leave within like 6 months. And their excuse was, Web3 isn't for me. But the secret is, it was for them. Like, it is for anybody, but they just didn't have the skills to lead teams in this industry. They didn't have the knowledge to adapt. They didn't understand how to create a space and a team that worked for them in this weird new industry. And imagine the amount of talent who would still be in this space creating a positive impact if they'd just learned that sooner. So this is why I'm so passionate about talking about this mission, because we've lost so many good people. We can't afford to lose more people, especially women as well. So I've discussed about why this happens, why people keep leaving. But I recently did an interview with Nia Foundation, and I'm just going to play this quickly, and it'll give you an idea. There we go. So the key points here is, and that I wanted to make in this video, were it's a new industry. We have no idea what we're doing, but it's about time we did. And lots of people have been telling us that we should be doing it a certain way, but until we experience it ourselves, we're not going to learn. So, I'm clicking, I've done this before. Clicking the link. Can you still see the page? Okay. Oh, where's the arrow gone? There's a URL here and it keeps jumping to it. There we go. I'll use my keyboard instead. Sorry, there we go. So if you are new in the space or you're working in the industry already, you will have heard phrases from people who already work here, like working in Web3 is 24/7. That's just how it is. Or things like, I need to get results fast, or I'm going to be replaced. It's dog eat dog here. Or if I don't reply now, the community will ruin our reputation and I'll get fired. But it doesn't have to be this way. Oh, it's sorry, we're having technical issues. I'm going to use the keys instead. So there are ways to manage this. And the following few slides are based on what's worked for me and what works for my clients. And it's what I strive to help businesses with. I work with it in my group coaching and I work one-on-one with people. And the first step to helping you understand how to lead in Web3 in emerging tech is to look after yourself first. And this is something that we forget, especially when you're in a really fast-paced job. You have lots of team relying on you. You have lots of responsibilities. You've got maybe a founding team who are not necessarily, they haven't really understood what leadership looks like for them yet, it's really difficult to keep on top of your own physical and mental health. So when you are in this kind of situation, it's so important to create your bubble of balance plan. Now, this plan helps you to notice your triggers. It helps you to create daily routines. It helps you set boundaries, and it helps you to do practical things that will help you stay within the bubble. Now, the first thing that I would recommend is understanding, what does it take for me to protect my own energy and my own time? And this is a practice that I do with everybody that I work with. Actually, it's one of the first things we do. And that's understanding, what do I want to say yes to? Okay. So a challenge that really, like a big challenge for a lot of the leaders in this space, is they want to go and do everything. They want to go and attend all the conferences. They want to take on all the big projects. But and the reason they keep saying yes, and the reason they keep burning out, is because they don't know where the lines are drawn. So the first thing that you need to do as a new leader in this space, or if you're already in this space, is understand, what is your no list. So your no list might be something like, I say no to working after 6 p.m. Okay. I say no to attending more than 2 conferences a week. I say no to taking on more work when it's not already on the plan, right? I say no to changing the entire plan and pivoting into a different product without doing these things. So it's understanding what you say no to. It's creating daily routines. So do you time block? Do you actually communicate what your day looks like to your team or to your founders? We have to work on that to make sure that we preserve our time. And if you've been in this space a while, or if you're just entering the space, you'll notice that you will become triggered in weird ways. So, and something that's quite common, that's hopefully not as common anymore, but it still is, are public debates. Because when you're building decentralized companies, the way to be decentralized is to have everything in public and everybody talking to each other. But it doesn't create the safest communication environment. And so you will see yourself becoming triggered in weird ways. And this is something that a lot of my clients are dealing with at the moment. For example, not understanding what someone means, not understanding what kind of personalities are in the space. These are all things that might trigger you. So understanding what are your triggers and noticing them and writing them down. And the best part of building a bubble is understanding how you can, I'm going to start that again, actually. I was just reading through my list and I was like, wait, there's actually a better idea. Cleansing and feeding your mind. And I've spoke about this a lot, and I talk about this all the time on my Instagram and LinkedIn. Cleansing and feeding your mind is the best way to create your bubble. So as a leader, you're noticing your triggers, you've started to create a few daily routines, you have set your boundaries and non-negotiables. But if you don't cleanse and feed your mind, none of that's going to work. And when you cleanse your mind, you are emptying it of all the things that you filled it up with throughout the day, throughout the weeks. And when you're feeding your mind, you're adding more information and more knowledge to it. If you do too much of one and too much of the other, things don't work. You'll start to notice. So when I know that I haven't cleansed my mind regularly, I get more anxiety and I don't deal with situations as well. That's a real trigger for me to understand, okay, I need to do more cleansing. And what I mean by cleansing is going for long walks, meditating, yoga classes. It's sitting in silence and just being in silence. It's noticing things in nature. It's doing things that don't provide distraction or stimulation. And once you do have a more cleansed mind, you've emptied your brain, you can start adding things in. So understanding what it takes for you to grow. Do you need to learn more things? To set boundaries and non-negotiables, do you need to learn how to do that? This is feeding. So we always need to have a balance of the two. And I'm not going to go into the NLP anchoring technique because I think it might take a bit too long, but there's things that you can do to keep this bubble. And if you feel it bubbling over in the wrong way, you can bring yourself back. And the most important thing about your bubble is that you communicate it and share it with others. So the best thing that I see happen is when a leadership team is empowering their teams to create a bubble for themselves. So you have a conversation with your team and you can help them plan out their own bubble. What does it take for them to cleanse and feed their mind? What kind of working hours do they need to be working? What do they say no to? Giving them and empowering them the space to create their own little bubble. And you can set time with your team. You can say, okay, today we're going to sit down and we're going to make our plan for our bubble of balance, right? And they'll be like, what is this? We've got things to do. We've got communities to respond to, but making sure that you take it as a priority, and so do they. And keeping on top of your team and checking in that their bubble's fine. How's it going? Are you still on top of your boundaries? What is challenging your boundaries right now? All these kind of things help you to keep your own bubble and keep your team's bubble. And it's so important because like I have especially my male clients who feel like they don't need to work on this. Women love this concept, but a lot of the time the male guys are like, no, it's fine, I don't need a bubble, I'm fine with boundaries, la la la. But when they do actually work on setting this, they actually start to develop more trust from their teams, because their teams think, well, the teams realize that they care about them, that they care about their health and well-being, and they're not just there to be money-making pawns in the big game of Web3. So it really works lovely. The most important thing, this is like my favorite part, is understanding what makes you and others excited. So once you've created your bubble, you're in there, you're calm, relaxed, whatever you want to create, then you're able to like do stuff, and you're able to show up. And the best part of that is understanding what kind of leader are you. And this is a model taken from the 6 types of working genius. It's one that I implement with all my clients who are leading bigger companies. And especially with the clients who come to me and say, I'm bored. Like I have a CEO and they are managing a big team. It's 50 plus. And they're just like, I'm not interested anymore in this business. I think I want to sell this business. And once we question this, I was like, do you actually want to sell this business, or do you just not like what you're doing? And we realized that they were not working in their type of genius at all. All they were doing was admin and managing, and that's not why they built the business. It's not what excited them. And so once we realized what they were, what type they had, we were able to understand who they needed to put in place to make sure that they could do what they like to do, and that they didn't have to sell a business. So they could have sold the business and then gone into another business and continued to do the same thing and wondering what was going on. So the 6 types of working genius are really interesting, and this is something that I urge everybody to go and like research afterwards. But we have the first type, which is the wanderer. So the wanderer is the person who asks the important questions, like, why are we doing this? Like, honestly, what is this going to help us with? They're the ones who say, maybe we should do it this way. Okay, they're the people who have ideas, but they don't necessarily know what to do with the ideas or thoughts. And then you've got the second type, invention. These are the people who take a question, so from the wanderer usually, or they might come up with their own, and they create new ideas and solutions. So my type of genius is an inventor, because I'm always having new ideas and solutions. And these are the people who will be at the forefront of leading in Web3. For example, these are the innovators, but they're not always the people who understand how to get people excited. The people who are getting people excited are the galvanizers. This is type 3. They help people to take an idea and start getting them excited, rallying them up, helping them with marketing. It's usually people who are in marketing and sales, or a CEO who wants to build a big company. Then you've got the fourth type, which is discernment. These are the ones who say to the inventor, are you sure that this is the right idea? Actually, someone else has done it like this. We could do it this way. They're the ones who keep validating. You've got the person who has tenacity. They're the ones who actually get the job done. Because if you've got a room full of the first 4, you're not going to get a lot done. And then you've got the person who enables everybody else. They are usually, I would like to say it's the office manager a lot of the time, or the operational manager. They're the ones who bring everyone together and they do what they can to help others succeed. And so mine are invention and galvanizing. So I've the ones where we can build an idea and we can also get excited about it. But I hate the execution part. Honestly, I would coach all day, every day, but I still have to do my marketing and I have to do my podcast and I've got lots of little bits. So I know who to hire to help me. So it's very exciting. So if you feel like you are getting frustrated in an area, especially in Web3, because you get thrown into a one-size-fits-all kind of role, you're like doing everything. Especially when I was a CMO in the space, it was okay, you're a CMO, but you're also doing a bit of sales, and you're doing a bit of product, and you're doing a bit of customer support, and you're doing community management. It's like it's very difficult to get your head around. And when you sorry about the dog, when you are too much in one area and that's frustrating you, it's time to kind of step back and think, actually, is what I'm doing on my day-to-day exciting me? Am I even good at this? So this is something to start to consider when you are looking at working at Web3 as a leader. And the third step
Hi,
is,
Emily.
oh,
Hi.
hello. Oh, I can't see. I've got my screen shared.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm off camera because it's almost 11 o'clock here. Thanks for sharing that slide. I really agree with the fact that, having those 6 personas is really important for people who are getting into Web3 or even are in Web3, because sometimes you don't recognize what kind of, capacity you have. And sometimes you could be, like, let's say for tenacity, you could be one, and then you could be a wanderer in another, but in different grades. And I think when, I also support this DAO, and I feel that once it kind of reaches, like midway, then it's also a good way of a reflective tool to see who is like where people are at, and what kind of other, like, let's say, capacities you need to bring into your organization, in terms
Yes.
of in terms of, like, let's say, skill setting, or getting the perfect mix of people.
Yeah, exactly. It's really, really good for hiring and understanding. And actually, I would love to see companies using this assessment when they are hiring, and even identifying who they need to hire and putting that in the job description. That would be really powerful. And
Yes.
there's no reason why we can't do it.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, let me see if this is yeah, it's working now. Okay, so the third part of really resourcing yourself to be a great leader in Web3 and emerging tech is to get clear on why you're here. Now, when I first came into Web3, it was with Bitcoin.com. And if you're new to this space, you won't have a clue about why this is so important. But the guy who used to run Bitcoin.com he was called Bitcoin Jesus, and he was Roger Ver. Roger Ver is I don't know, would say a pioneer in the space. And so he was the one who was pushing peer-to-peer electronic cash when it was just a weird concept in the space. He was pushing merchant adoption in Asia. And he had an extremely clear why. And that why was to create freedom, financial freedom for people, and help them to accept cash all over the world without the need of a centralized system. So he was pushing like the Satoshi's vision from day one. I think it was like 2012 or something. And so I worked for him. He was my direct report. Like, he was my direct boss. And being able to, I used to follow him around the world and do all the conferences with him. And there was like absolutely no way you couldn't get sucked into that vision and mission. He was so passionate, and I could just like repeat what he was saying. It was so drummed into me. And if anybody asks me, I knew exactly why I was here. I knew exactly what my job was. I knew exactly why I was sat there for hours, like we used to do tons of product marketing stuff, making huge campaigns, because it was so important that this company was successful, because we were going to help so many people. And the only way that worked was because he used to drum in the why constantly. Like, every single call we had, every single video he made, every single media publication was explaining the why. So it's really important, before you even get to the company's why, to understand why you're even here. Why are you in this job? For example, if you've been hired as a CMO or a COO, what do you want to achieve in this role? How is it going to help you achieve your bigger goals in life? We need to really understand this before ever thinking about setting goals, right? And the next thing is to understand what is the company's why. And this is something that was, and a lot of the time when I would be an advisor for companies, they were missing the why. Because especially if they were decentralized, and when I mean decentralized, it's like they're fully decentralized, like, here's what we want to do, and here's some money, and just like build the business, please. And I used to find that whenever I used to push back and ask for a company's why, it was just pushed in many different directions, and nobody could really sit down and pull one out. And the reason that this doesn't work is because nobody knows what direction they're headed in. And I've seen big companies who are decentralized, running in silos, who are very much focused on just getting things done and moving with the markets. But what you see is the teams crumble. The teams are lost. They're not really sure why they're here. They lose all their motivation. When they're in silos, they're not talking to each other. They're just kind of like doing their own thing. And it just doesn't make a strong team culture. So it should be your mission to understand what is the company's why, and you should every day try and work on that until you get it really clear, and you get it so clear that you can reiterate that in every conversation you have. You can reiterate it to your teams, and then your teams can reiterate that story. That should be one of your missions as soon as you get into a company. And alongside this, you need to understand what are your values. Okay, so you've got your why. Maybe one of your big whys is, I want to retire early, or I want to earn enough money so I can help loads more other people, right? Whatever your why is, you have to understand if this feeds into the company's why, because if it doesn't, and it's maybe your why might be, okay, I just need, this is a transitional role, or this is a role that's going to help me fund the future, and the company's why is kind of aligned with that, great. But if your why is totally off from the company's why, it's not going to work. And that is even more important when it comes to values. So if your values are integrity, transparency, I don't know what else it could be, if they're along those lines, and the company is siloed, decentralized, they don't have transparency as a core value, you have to understand if this is a place that you want to work with. And this is something that I see all the time. There's like these misalignments of values with leaders and the companies, and they constantly wonder why they wake up and they're just frustrated every day. So get very clear in your values, get very clear in the company values, then you're able to communicate this. Does that make sense? That's quite difficult to explain. Okay, so you're clear on your why, you're clear on the company's why, you're clear on your values, and you're clear on the company's values. How does that manifest into your team? Right? You know all this stuff now. You know what you didn't know before. It's time to set actual goals. And believe it or not, many companies in this space do not have clear goals. They just kind of tell people to do stuff and hope for the best. And so this is something I was obsessed with when I was in a CMO role, was what's the why, what are the values, and what do we do now? What do we do to meet the big vision and mission and help us to actually keep moving forward? So as soon as you get into a role in Web3, you need to figure out the mission, set the goals, set KPIs, however you want to do it. But I always start with the big goal. That might be, okay, in the next 12 months, we're going to grow the business by X revenue. And then we need to set the key point indicators or OKRs or however you run it. And then you have to make sure that your team do the same. So get clear in the company's goals and KPIs. How does that feed into your own role and your team's role? How does it feed into an individual role? So a lot of the time, we might be running our own goals and we might be hoping that other people can get behind them, but it might be misaligned with the individual's goals. So they might not understand why we are running our own goals up here. So you have to get everybody aligned. We need to make sure that the team's goals always feed into the company's goals. So I've seen products being built, but it's absolutely in the different direction to the company's mission and vision. So let me think of an example. An exchange. Everybody was building exchanges at some point. They've kind of stopped now, hopefully. But like every man and his dog used to have an exchange coming out every week. And when I used to question this and say, okay, well, is this actually going to help you meet the long-term goal? Usually it wasn't. It was usually just like, everyone's building an exchange. Let's build an exchange. So you always want to be asking, when you're setting goals, is this in line with the company's goals, and is it in line with the mission and vision and values?
Just to add to that, and especially Web3 is so community driven that the organization has to always look, and we at Role Model Rebels are also constantly seeing that how our KPIs or how our goals align to what let's say our community wants. And I remember this Shannon Snow, she said that at the World of Women, one of the products or the propositions that they came up was from one of what the community was saying, and that's how they were building it as a strategy, and aligning with what the company and their goals are to become much more sustainable and have a more impactful outcome.
Yeah, Yeah, that's a really good point. In terms of the community growth, and it really depends on how the company is structured, right? What I've seen, and it all depends on if they've got a token or what they're tying their value to. I've seen communities pressure teams to do something, and there's not a actual structure set up. And I've seen investors pressure teams to do something. So
Yeah,
a lot of the
exactly.
time, yeah. And it usually, a lot of the time, the changes come from, if they've had investment, then that's the change that they're going to be making. And a lot of the time, it goes against what the community want,
Yeah, exactly.
unfortunately.
It's a very tough call because, normally, there's the whole idea of return of investment versus, what the actual outcome should be. And then the pressure is just, at the point of the organization. And that's where, what you had said earlier about finding the right people and the skill sets also come into play who can handle, such pressure situations to build that kind of outcome.
Yeah, definitely. It's having the courage to have a difficult conversation. So, especially, I remember when we were coming out of the ICO kind of boom, and
Yeah, in the
yeah,
beginning.
yeah,
Yeah.
and there was a lot of disconnect between the communities and the investors, like the actual VC investors and the teams. And the teams usually would have the founding team members who were the ones who had all the pressure on their shoulders, and they were the ones who went and got the funding, making decisions that were so misaligned with what they'd said they would do. And it takes someone, it takes someone who knew, usually someone, a new person, to come in and show them what's actually going on, because founders can get blindsided or blinded, I would say, by the pressure. They really struggle, and they always benefit from a new person coming in and having the courage to build the trust, to deliver information like this, to build the trust, the relationships, and then tell them what's not working and give them solutions. And so I've seen leadership teams change, and lots of conflict happen when this happens. And you have to take someone who's really strong and has strong values, they're not just leading from opinion, they've got all the data behind them to help them come to a founding team and say, look, this isn't working, the community are in disarray, and I know that you're making decisions based on investment, but I don't think it's the right decision. That's a really difficult conversation to have.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
You're welcome. So the best way to start to build this trust, and like that was a good segue there, was how do we have these kind of conversations? The only way to start to build trust and relationships with people is to get on the level of whoever you're working with. So one thing that I used to see and still happen time and time again is people who have been either in the Web2 space or in a different industry completely, and they're coming into maybe their first big leadership role. Maybe they're coming into the C-suite and they have big ideas, they've identified what needs to be changed, and they'll just come in and then they'll start to make the changes really quickly. And what happens is, at first it's kind of well received, because usually there's been a lot of stagnant energy for a long time. People haven't really been happy, and they're like, oh, amazing, there's a new person, they're going to come and help us change things around. But what happens is they don't stop to listen to what everybody else is doing or what the current situation is. They come in, they change everything, a bit like a bull in a china shop, and it ends up ruining any kind of trust that might have been there, and people start to block them. They start getting lots of no's. They don't get the buy-in. They don't get where they want to be. And it becomes very difficult for them. And then over time, they feel like this is just too hard. I don't really want to be here. It feels hostile. Then they leave. Like, I've seen this happen like 4 times. And this is something that I actually deal with a few of my clients. But the best way to deal with this is, step 1, remember that it's not about you. When you first come into a company, yes, you're going to be excited, and yes, you're going to want to make changes because you want to prove yourself, but it's not about you. This is about the team that are currently in the business. So it's up to you to learn how to get on with this team. You need to understand what their mission is first. Why are they here? Are they motivated? Do they want to be here anymore? Understand what they're going through. Understand what the commonalities are. Have you got kids? Have you got dogs? Like, why are they even in Web3, right? Learn their story. I recommend always booking in meetings with people as soon as you get into a company, and just getting to know them. This isn't anything to do with you anymore. This is about them, and getting them on side and helping them is number one. So once you understand who the team are, what you have in common, what makes them tick, what makes them excited, understand what their mission is, why they're here, you've got to help them achieve it. Okay? Because you can't come in with I know what you want to do, but actually I want to do this first, right? You can help me do my mission. No, it's all about, I need you, I'm going to be here for you to help you achieve what your mission is and what your goals are. So maybe they want to, I don't know, they want to become a manager, right? You're dealing with a marketing social media person. Maybe they want to become a marketing manager. Cool. I'm going to help you do that. Or maybe they've had a huge blocker and they're trying to get a product to market, but they are blocked by product, or they're blocked by a development team. You can help them to remove the blocker. Whatever you can do to help them keep moving forward, do it. And you will start to build trust. And you have to do what you say you're going to do all the time. And this is something that's worked really well for me. And then, and only then, can you get them excited about your mission. And so if you've had all these big ideas and you've got all these big plans, at that point, when you've built trust, it might take a few months. You can start to get them excited about your mission and see how they fit into your mission as well. And this actually really applies when you're working in Asian regions. So I've worked with Vietnamese, I've worked with Japanese, I've worked with Chinese companies, and Chinese companies are set up completely different to anything that I've ever worked with. And it's all about trust. Like you're not even expected to do any work for like three to 6 months, I would say. Until you've built this trust and you've helped everybody else. So this comes in very handy if you're working in an Asian team. It's not clicking. Here we go. And as part of this, as a leader in the Web3 space, you need to focus on integrity and transparency. So to work in this space, these could be a really great value to hold. And these are values that you want to be looking for in the company values. Because a lot of the time you'll hear people talking about transparency, decentralization, community, but they're not actually doing anything with these terms. And so I've experienced a lot of ways not to talk to people, and a lot of ways that people are not being as compassionate and supportive as possible. So I would suggest to avoid sentences like, we need to talk ASAP. This is something that happens a lot, all the time. Like I even get clients texting me today saying, oh my God, the boss has just texted me, am I going to get fired? So when you send a message like this, it's like constant, like, especially if you have an insecurity about your role already, it will trigger some kind of anxiety. So make sure that you know that, and that you can that you do not talk to people in this way. Another one that I hear quite often is, okay, the founding team or the investors are not happy. Maybe we're going to be laid off. Is our job safe? There's always a lot of talk around job security in this space. Another one that I heard recently when I was working with the company was, I have no idea what the goals are. I think it's just to make money, I guess. And this is when I was auditing a team recently. And then another one was, oh, we're just decentralized. We don't talk to the other teams. And these are like true stories. And this comes up quite often because whenever I go into a company, I audit people, like not audit in that way, but audit as in have interviews with people. And I go and understand what the team leads are thinking and what challenges they have. So I can start to figure and put the pieces together. So these are all sentences that have come out over the last few years. So this is not how to talk to your team or your founders. Ways that will work to help build trust and integrity and transparency are, I would love to chat to you about whatever the topic is, whenever you have time. So always include in the topic. The company is not reaching its goals, which means we may have to reduce expenditure. I'll keep you in the loop. Don't worry, this is nothing to do with you or your skills. If people just added that last bit of text to a message or to a phone call, anxiety would be reduced immediately. Because a lot of the time when these things happen, and especially when we go through layoffs, people just start questioning their abilities and their skills, and it just increases the insecurity and it reduces the opportunities that they'll take in the future. So you are responsible. And this sounds like, oh God, this is up to me about, it's all up to me to be this person that they look up to, or this person who will manage their emotions. You're not managing your emotions, but you do have that responsibility to support them and deliver information in a way that is not going to trigger them. You have to be aware of all of this when you're working with teams. Another way is, let's make sure our goals are aligned with the team and the company. Or we collaborate with all teams. We even have a system, right? That's the dream. these are all the things that we want to be heading towards. And whenever I work with teams, and I notice, like in the previous slide, during the interviews, I notice these kind of phrases coming out of people's mouths. You start to realize where the cracks are. And I even go through these kind of things with people in teams and say, okay, this is the way that you actually sent this Slack message. What could be a better way, right? These all come from conversations that I have with people in teams.
And I think that's a very important point that you've just raised, because I think, when people are talking about Web3, the idea of ownership, autonomy, and decentralization is also very loosely used, and people use it to their convenience as well. And when you're talking about communities, then like when things like you can't just say, oh, that person has the autonomy and they can do XYZ. You will still have to work as a collective. I'd like to share an incident that happened last week. So I'm in a community, and there was this one person who just started out of the blue, started gaslighting me in public, like on a WhatsApp group. And then I had a conversation with another DAO member, saying that this was absolutely unnecessary. Though I was triggered, I kept my cool, and I didn't want to bring it out in the public. And then, so that person said that, you have the right to exercise XYZ. So I said that, we can't just use it at the, whenever it's convenient. And if we are going to work in a borderless, society or an environment, then trust is something that is so important. And at the end of it, he understood my conversation. And I said that, then he said that, yes, I definitely agree with what you're saying. And if you would like me to speak to that team member, I'm happy to do so. I said, yeah, because, this is what kind of culture are we creating, and we need to be more open and more kind with one another within the team to, actually come together and, and achieve our goals or do whatever, collaborate to build that, that environment.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, because this is something that I actually use this as an example quite a lot. It's the Slack messages. It's the calling people out in public and throwing people under the bus in Slack, WhatsApp,
exactly.
whatever you use.
And very unknowingly, like thinking that everybody knows what's going on. I don't think there is any growth or any honor in that, when you're doing that with your own team members, just because you've not met them.
Yes. And so this is something that would be a difficult conversation for a leader like you, for example, to have. And this is what I would love to see us all work towards is, okay, if this does happen, how do we not necessarily stand up for ourselves, but how do we change it? How do we want to be communicated with? What would it look like if this was different? Okay. And how can we have that difficult conversation with someone and be brave? And what kind of what tools do we need to use to have that kind of conversation? And so in my experience, this is something that really wore me down actually when I was younger. It used to happen to me like daily, because I worked with I will say leaders who haven't necessarily worked on their leadership skills. And these people were dog-eat-dog style ex TradFi, hedge fund managers, all this kind of thing. They've never had to manage people actually. And they'd, like many of the people in this industry, had come into a lot of money. They took a risk, come into a lot of money, and they decided to grow a team without having developed themselves. And so this happened all the time. And it's actually what drove a lot of people out of companies. This happened, and it was especially prevalent in the exchanges. This was the kind of environment. And so I learned how not to do this and how to diffuse this kind of situation. So I always used to, if I ever saw this happening, like I would not allow this in my team. It was like, this does not happen. It's not compassionate. It's not treating people like humans, right? And so if I ever saw it happening to any of my team members, I would take it offline immediately. I'd say, okay, please do not have these kind of discussions in public. Let's have a call. And I'd always just used to nip it in the bud, take it out offline. And so as a leader, you have to have the courage to just do that and protect your team. I actually have got a slide about this, which is we've got compassion, having compassion, like
very
you just
apt,
said.
I must say.
Yeah. Yeah. So having compassion, not just empathy, but really feeling what someone's going through and having this need to help them. And that's something that I felt was really missing in this space. And especially in these decentralized companies, there's just the compassion wasn't there because we're trying to like systemize ourselves, right? And so bringing compassionate leadership is literally the golden thread throughout everything. If you don't have compassion, then you can't understand what someone's going through. I'm going to skip ahead a sec just to this slide. But yeah, it's the be the umbrella. So in any situation like you were going through, if you felt you were being gaslighted, I would hope that you had someone who could hold the umbrella over you. Or if you are the leader, how can you help make sure that that doesn't happen for anybody else in the team? And that's done. That's the last time it happens. That is something really important to work on.
Yes,
But going,
and
sorry, you go
also,
first.
yeah, and also another thing which I also realized with, I mean, with Web3 communities, it's also slightly gender based, that you wouldn't see that happening amongst men, but you see that, when a woman is, at a certain stage or a position within a group, and I've seen many people target, and it's also very gender based, where,
Yeah.
it's where that kind of like, attack is very baseless, but yet that compassion doesn't come,
Yes. And so in those moments, actually, it really helps to be compassionate for yourself and for others. And the way we do that is, and this is an exercise that I get my clients to practice, is imagine what this person is going through. As much as they're like horrible to you and you feel like they're attacking you, or you feel like they're not your kind of person, right? You feel like what they're doing is out of order. To be compassionate means understanding what they are and feeling what they're going through. So a nice exercise, and if you're in this situation ever again, is take a moment to breathe, take everything offline, like go offline for a few minutes and close your eyes, take a moment to breathe and feel what you're feeling. So, okay, I am feeling this, put a label on it, right? I'm feeling angry, frustrated. I'm feeling like I'm not good enough. I'm feeling like, attacked, whatever you feel, put a label on it and let go of the feeling, breathe into the feeling. And then start to imagine that the other person sat next to you and that your body floats into the person sat next to you and you're feeling what they're feeling. And usually you're able to diffuse it because what they're feeling is scared a lot of the time. Whenever anybody acts out in this way, it's because of their own fears and insecurities. It's nothing to do with you ever.
Yeah,
Honestly,
correct.
I've dealt with people who are really successful men who did this time and time again. And I thought it's just because they're a man, it's just because they're erratic or whatever. But actually, one of the biggest fears was that they were going to fail. If and they projected it on other people, like if that person doesn't do this, then I'm going to fail. And that was what was triggering them. And I used this exercise when I was going through this. And it really helped me to be like, okay, hurt people hurt people. That's the phrase that always goes through my mind. And it helps me to be compassionate to them. And I then am able to diffuse the emotions, understand it's not about me. And I'm actually able to give them feedback in a way that does not create more tension or more frustration. So there's a nice compassionate practice that you could do. I might record one actually for you guys. I do lots of meditations and practices, but the compassion practice or any kind of compassion practice that you may come across is good to add to your daily meditation or whenever you meditate, because it helps you to keep feeling what other people are feeling and know that it's never about you ever. Okay.
Sorry, Emily, I don't want to crash the party here, but we
It's
need
fine.
to stick a little bit to the time.
Oh yes.
Is that
We're
okay?
done.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm going to
super.
skip a
Great.
few things.
Super.
So now we've got trust, we've built relationships, we have compassion, we understand how to talk to our team, we understand why we're here. Then you've got a formula to get buy-in. And so especially if you're in a decision-making role and you need to get moving, you need to take action, we can't come at it with opinions. And so I used to see time and time again people making decisions based off like thin air. And so I always took it upon myself to lead with data. And so I used to gather my own data. I used to have a data team. Well, I gather it however you want, but make sure that when you present it, you're presenting it from data first and not opinion. I also used to recognize other people's achievements. So if you want to get buy-in, you want to get a new campaign out, you want to get a new product to market, you need to recognize the achievements of others first to help build more trust. But one thing, and I'm going to skip ahead, but there's one thing that I used to do to build this trust, to get buy-in. Like I see it as like you're slowly building small rocks, and you're building a tower of small rocks. And when you've built this trust and you want to take big action now, you've got something that you really want to accomplish, and you know that you can do it, and you've got the data behind you, you start to build out a paper trail. And so something I used to do religiously was the Friday email. So every week I used to send a weekly review email to my boss. And in this email, it had a quick TLDR overview of what was great that week. It has snapshots of data. So before was this, after is this. It used to list out initiatives and projects that I was running. And it listed, really focused on the team accomplishments. That was a big part of it. It's like, hey, this team did it, it wasn't me. Or not, you know what I mean? And then we used to look at any challenges that have come up. Okay, this is blocking us, we need to change it with this. And then we'd put the budget in there, and then we tell them a summary of next week's plan. And so this Friday email literally was the key to getting my buy-in. I'd built the trust, I'd built the commonalities, I literally had calls with every single head all the time because we had a great relationship. I helped other people do a lot of things. So when I wanted to do things, there was absolutely no way anybody could say no, because I had a paper trail of all the achievements, I had all the relationships, and I had the data to back up the idea. And this was literally the secret sauce to getting buy-in. So if you're in a role right now and you need something to happen, I would recommend getting this Friday email. It's just a Word document that you can download, and you can utilize it, see how you get on. And then I'm going to skip this because this is a bit more for product teams, but it's basically how to stay on top of industry changes. But I think I could do a whole webinar on this, to be honest. And yeah, and so having all of this empowers you to make decisions together as a team. It helps you to build trust. It helps you to start understanding what it actually takes to lead in Web3. There we go. Sorry, I skipped ahead for the end.
Fantastic. It was fantastic. I was just like, two things I would like to add here. The one thing you said is where I think is like data over opinion, which I think is super important. Whatever you do, you know, I think it's also very, very fair because you take away your emotions. The other things, everything you explained, so I would say it also applies for every world, whether it is Web 2, Web 3, Web 1, no web. It's just like, you know, this is how you behave to be successful. And maybe a lot of people, because they are acting in the web, it's so far away from sitting next to each other, they think they can do whatever they like. And that is something I think is the general rules and how you behave and how you treat your counterpart. They are the same whether you are in Web 2, 3, whatsoever. And I think
exactly
that is my takeaway. And I have seen so many people being rude because they think, oh, just like I just shut down, or I'm just like, I'm not paying attention. Therefore, I think it's very, very interesting. Wonderful presentation, Emily. I really liked it very, very much. We're going to make short snippets out of it. And also, as it is recorded, we will share it on YouTube if this is okay with you. And having said that, I think Anupa, it's already midnight, something like this in India. I think we are going to wave goodbye. It was wonderful. Thank you very, very much, Emily.
Thank you.
And
thank you so much. This was extremely helpful and very insightful also, because, you know, it was something that we're also going through as, you know, as a Web3, you know, in production community, and it's good to see that, you know, how we can aid ourselves and go beyond.
Yeah, and I loved all the questions. It's really good for me because this is the first time I've run through this kind of slides, and it's given me loads of ideas of how to, like, I could do a webinar on like each point, I think. So that's given me loads of ideas, all of your questions, to help me like chunk it down.
Yeah.
Thank you very, very much, Emily. I wish everyone a wonderful evening, and thanks a lot, and talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.